Admiral Vexthal stared at the holographic display floating above his command table. The image showed a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. He made a sound that might have been laughter if he were human, but coming from his reptilian throat, it sounded more like a hiss. "This is what the scouts brought us?" he asked his aide, Commander Killinara. "A primitive world with no space fleet?" Killinara nodded, her 4 arms working quickly on the control panel. "The report says they still use chemical rockets to leave their atmosphere. Their weapons are basic projectiles that fire metal slugs. No energy shields, no plasma cannons, nothing advanced." The Admiral walked around the display, studying the planet from different angles. Earth looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. It was hard to believe that billions of creatures lived down there, completely unaware that their world was about to change forever. "What do they call themselves?" Vexthal asked. "Humans," Killinara replied, checking her notes. "They are divided into many small groups that fight among themselves. No unified government, no single military force. The scouts say they would be easy to conquer." The Admiral nodded. The Zephyrian Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, each one falling quickly to their superior technology and military might. Some civilizations had impressive energy weapons or strong shields, but none had been able to stand against the Empire's vast fleets. This human world looked like it would be the easiest conquest, yet not far away from the Imperial Command Center. On the 3rd planet from a yellow star, Jake Patterson was having a normal day. He sat in the cockpit of his small patrol ship, the UE Scout, watching the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere. His job was simple: fly around the solar system, check for anything unusual, and report back to Earth Command. It was usually boring work. Space was big and empty, and nothing interesting ever happened during patrol. Jake had been doing this job for 3 years, and the most exciting thing he had seen was a small asteroid that came too close to a communication satellite. Today felt different, though. His ship's sensors were picking up something strange at the edge of the solar system. The reading showed large objects moving in formation, too big to be asteroids and too organized to be natural. Jake checked his instruments twice, then checked them again. "Earth Command, this is Scout 7, he said into his radio. "I'm getting some weird readings out here. Looks like there might be ships near Pluto." The voice that answered him sounded tired and uninterested. "Scout 7, check your equipment. We don't have any ships scheduled for that area." Jake frowned at his display. The objects were definitely there, and they were moving toward the inner solar system. "Command, I'm looking at least 20 large contacts. They're not showing up on our tracking network." "Patterson, when was the last time you ran diagnostics on your sensors?" 2 days ago, sir. Everything checked out fine." There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, sounding slightly more interested. "Send us your data. We'll take a look." Jake transmitted his sensor readings and continued to watch the mysterious objects. They were getting closer, and his instruments showed they were huge. Each one was at least 10 times bigger than Earth's largest warship. But that was impossible, because Earth didn't have any ships that size. Nobody did. On the surface of Earth, in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. The UE's Defender was not beautiful by any measure. It looked like a collection of metal boxes welded together, with engine nozzles sticking out in all directions. But it was the best that human technology could build. Lisa had been chosen to command the Defender because she was one of the few people who understood both space, combat, and the ship's experimental systems. The vessel had been built in secret over the past 5 years, using technology that had been reverse-engineered from a crashed alien scout ship that had been found in the Nevada desert decades earlier. Captain, called Lieutenant Dan Foster from the communications station. We're getting reports from the Outer System Patrol. Something big is heading our way. Lisa walked over to the main display screen. The information from Jake Patterson's patrol ship was being analyzed by Earth's best scientists and military experts. The conclusion was clear. Someone was coming to visit, and they probably were not friendly. How long until they reach Earth? Lisa asked. At their current speed, about 18 hours, Foster replied. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. 18 hours to prepare for humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. And it looked like that contact was going to be hostile dot in the depths of space. Sub-Admiral Kethvar reviewed the mission briefing one more time. His fleet consisted of 30 warships, each one capable of destroying entire cities with a single blast. The attack plan was simple. Approach the human world, demand surrender, and begin orbital bombardment if they refused. The humans would probably surrender immediately. Most primitive species did when they saw the Empire's ships. Those that chose to fight usually lasted less than an hour before their governments agreed to submit. Kethvar had conquered 12 worlds in his career, and this one would be the easiest yet. The humans had no space fleet worth mentioning, no energy weapons, and no shields. His ships could destroy every military installation on the planet from orbit, and there was nothing the humans could do to stop him. He looked forward to adding Earth to his list of conquered worlds. It would be a nice, simple victory to end his career with Dot. The sub-admiral had no way of knowing that he was about to become part of the greatest military disaster in the Empire's history. The humans were primitive, weak, and divided, but they were also something that the Empire had never encountered before. Completely unpredictable Dot as the Imperial fleet moved closer to Earth. Both sides prepared for a meeting that would change the galaxy forever. The Empire expected an easy victory over a backward species. The humans expected to fight for their lives against impossible odds. Neither side was completely wrong, but neither was completely right either. The real surprise was still to come. The message came through every radio, television, and communication device on Earth at exactly 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. The voice spoke in perfect English, though it had a strange accent that made some words sound like they were being hissed. "People of Earth," the voice said, "I am Sub-Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our domain. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization." In the White House Situation Room, President Amanda Clark sat at the head of a long table surrounded by her top advisors. General Peter Hayes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was studying satellite images of the alien fleet. Admiral Susan Lee, head of the newly formed Space Defense Command, was reading reports from the few human ships that had managed to get close, enough to observe the invaders. "How many ships are we looking at?" President Clark asked. 30 confirmed, Admiral Lee replied. "Each one is about the size of an aircraft carrier, but they move like fighter jets. Our best estimates say they could destroy every major city on Earth in less than an hour." General Hayes looked up from his papers. "Ma'am, we have to consider the possibility that fighting back would only make things worse. Maybe we should try to negotiate." The president shook her head. "These aren't diplomats, General. They're conquerors. If we surrender now, we'll be slaves forever." She turned to Admiral Lee. "What do we have that can fight them?" "The Defender is our best ship, but it's only one vessel. We have 12 other ships that might be useful in combat, but they're all much smaller and less advanced. It would be like sending rowboats against battleships." President Clark stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see people in the streets, some panicking, others standing around looking up at the sky. In less than a day, their world had changed from a peaceful planet to a war zone. "We fight," she said finally. "If we're going to die, we die free." Captain Tony Rodriguez received his orders an hour later. He was to lead the first human squadron into battle against the alien fleet. His ship, the UES Falcon, was joined by 11 other vessels that had been quickly converted from civilian or research purposes into combat ships. Tony knew the odds were terrible. His ships were small, slow, and armed with weapons that had been designed for fighting other humans, not alien warships. But the orders were clear: engage the enemy and try to learn as much as possible about their capabilities before being destroyed. The human squadron launched from hidden bases around the world and met up near the moon. Tony looked at his display screen, which showed the positions of all 12 human ships. They looked tiny compared to the alien fleet that was moving toward them. "All ships, this is Falcon Leader," Tony said into his radio. "We all know what we're facing. Our job is to hit them hard and send back as much information as we can. Maybe the next group will have better luck." The human ships accelerated toward Mars, where the alien fleet was waiting. The Zephyrian ships floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They looked like works of art compared to the crude, boxy human vessels. Commander Alex Murphy, flying the U.E.'s Hawk, was the first to get close enough to take detailed scans of the enemy ships. What he saw made his heart sink. The alien vessels were covered in some kind of energy field that shimmered like heat waves. His instruments showed that the shields were incredibly strong, designed to deflect any known type of weapon. "Falcon Leader, this is Hawk," Alex reported. "These things have shields that could probably stop a nuclear blast. Our guns might not even scratch them." On the lead Zephyrian ship, Captain Felinock watched the approaching human squadron with amusement. The primitive vessels were moving so slowly that his gunners could destroy them all without even trying. He decided to let them get closer, just to see what kind of weapons they would use. "Shall we raise shields, Captain?" asked his weapons officer. Felinock made the hissing sound that passed for laughter among his people. "Against those things? Save the power for something that matters. Let them fire first. I want to see what these humans think passes for military technology." The first human ship to open fire was the UES Falcon. Tony Rodriguez had decided to test the alien shields with his ship's main weapon, a railgun that could fire metal slugs at incredible speed. The weapon had been designed to punch through the armor of enemy ships by hitting them with solid projectiles moving at thousands of miles per hour. The railgun fired with a flash of light and a surge of electrical power. The metal slug shot across space and hit the Zephyrian ship's hull with tremendous force. Captain Felinock expected to see the projectile bounce off harmlessly or disintegrate against his ship's armor. Instead, the slug punched through the hull like it was made of paper. The impact created a massive hole in the side of the ship, and atmosphere began streaming out into space. Emergency alarms sounded throughout the vessel as damage control teams scrambled to seal the breach. "Impossible," Felinock shouted. "Raise shields immediately." But it was too late. The other human ships had seen the effect of the railgun and opened fire with their own weapons. More solid projectiles slammed into the Zephyrian vessels, creating holes and causing explosions. The alien ships had shields that could stop energy weapons, but they had never encountered enemies that fired chunks of metal at high speed. Alex Murphy watched in amazement as his ship's weapons tore through the enemy formation. The aliens were scrambling to activate their shields and return fire, but the human attack had caught them completely off guard. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel," Tony Rodriguez ordered. Let's see how much damage we can do. The human squadron focused their weapons on Captain Felinock's ship. Dozens of metal slugs slammed into the hull, creating so many holes that the vessel began to break apart. The captain had just enough time to send a distress signal before his ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The destruction of a Zephyrian warship by primitive human weapons sent shockwaves through the entire alien fleet. Sub-Admiral Kethfer stared at his display screen in disbelief. One of his ships had been destroyed by creatures that barely qualified as spacefaring. All ships, activate shields and return fire, he ordered. Destroy those primitive vessels. Immediately, the Zephyrian fleet opened fire with their energy weapons. Beams of superheated plasma streaked across space toward the human ships. The U-East Defender and 3 other vessels managed to dodge the first barrage, but the rest were not so lucky. In a matter of seconds, 8 human ships were vaporized by the alien weapons. Captain Lisa Brooks, commanding the Defender, watched her fellow ships die and felt a mixture of grief and determination. The human squadron had proven that the aliens could be hurt, but the cost was terrible. Only 4 ships remained from the original 12. All remaining ships, fall back to Earth, she ordered. We've learned what we needed to know. As the surviving human vessels retreated, Sub-Admiral Kethvar surveyed the damage to his fleet. 1 ship destroyed, 3 others damaged, and his reputation as an unstoppable conqueror was in ruins. The primitive humans had actually fought back, and they had hurt him. He sent an urgent message to Admiral Vexthal. Request immediate reinforcements. The humans are more dangerous than anticipated. On Earth, the news of the first battle spread quickly. The human squadron had been almost wiped out, but they had also destroyed an alien warship. For the first time since the invasion began, people dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, they could win this war. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, working in the engineering section of the U.S. Defender, studied the data that had been collected during the battle. The alien ships were powerful, but they had weaknesses. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons, but solid projectiles could get through. Their hulls were strong, but not indestructible. Most importantly, the aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and that mistake had cost them. Sarah began working on modifications to the human weapons, using what they had learned from the battle. The next time they fought, she intended to make sure the aliens would be in for an even bigger surprise. Admiral Kursith had built his reputation on crushing rebellions. His 3rd battle fleet was the Empire's elite force, equipped with the most advanced weapons and crewed by the most experienced soldiers. When he received orders to deal with the human problem, he expected it to be routine work. The reports from Sub-Admiral Kethfer were disturbing, but Kursith was not worried. 1 lucky shot by primitive savages did not make them a real threat. His fleet of 60 warships would show these humans what real military power looked like. As his ships entered the Earth's solar system, Kursith gave orders that no chances would be taken. All vessels would maintain maximum shields at all times. Any human ship that approached would be destroyed immediately. The planet itself would be bombarded until nothing remained but smoking ruins. Begin the attack, he commanded. Target all military installations and population centers. I want this world to serve as an example to any other species that thinks it can resist the Empire. The 3rd battle fleet spread out across Earth's orbital space and began systematic bombardment. Energy beams lanced down from space, destroying military bases, government buildings, and anything else that looked important. The humans had no defense against orbital bombardment, and entire cities began to disappear under the alien assault. Colonel Matt Williams crouched in the ruins of what had once been Peterson Air Force Base. The alien attack had come without warning, reducing the installation to rubble in minutes. Around him, the surviving members of his unit tried to establish communications with other military units, but most of the command centers had been destroyed in the first wave. "Sir," called Sergeant Amy Johnson, "we're getting reports from all over the world. The aliens are hitting every major military target simultaneously. They're not just trying to conquer us anymore. They're trying to wipe us out." Matt nodded grimly. The aliens had learned from their first encounter with humanity and decided that the only safe approach was total annihilation. But they had made one mistake. They assumed that destroying the obvious targets would end human resistance. "Get me a connection to the underground network," Matt ordered. "It's time to show these aliens what guerrilla warfare looks like." Captain Jennifer Brown was evacuating civilians from New York City when the bombardment began. The alien ships hung in the sky like dark clouds, raining death on the city below. Entire blocks disappeared in flashes of light, and the survivors fled in panic through the streets. "Move faster," she shouted to the refugees streaming toward the subway tunnels. "The underground shelters are our only chance." Jennifer had spent years preparing for this day, though she had never imagined it would come so soon. The government had built extensive underground facilities designed to protect key personnel and resources in case of nuclear war. Now those same shelters were humanity's last hope against an alien invasion. As she helped an elderly man down the stairs into the subway, Jennifer saw something that made her heart race. High above the city, human ships were emerging from hidden bases, flying fast and low to avoid the alien sensors. They were not the large, official vessels of the Earth Defense Force, but small, fast attack craft that looked like they had been built in scrapyards. Commander Ryan Clark led the first wave of the new human strategy. His ship, the Modified Mining Vessel Free Spirit, was one of dozens of civilian craft that had been converted into fighting ships. They were not pretty, and they were not built to military standards, but they had one advantage that the aliens had not expected. They were completely unpredictable. Ryan's squadron used the asteroid belt as cover, hiding among the chunks of rock and metal that orbited between Mars and Jupiter. When the alien ships passed by, the humans would dart out, fire their weapons, and disappear back into the asteroids before the enemy could respond. "Ghost leader to all ships," Ryan said into his radio. "Remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, and get out before they know what happened. We can't win a direct fight, but we can make their lives miserable." The human ships struck at the edges of the alien formation, targeting supply vessels and communication ships. They used the asteroids as both cover and weapons, sometimes pushing large rocks toward the alien fleet and watching them impact against the shields. Admiral Kursith watched the attacks with growing frustration. The humans were like insects, too small and fast to catch, but persistent enough to be annoying. Every time he sent ships to hunt them down, they would vanish into the asteroid field or behind one of the planet's moons. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we've lost contact with 3 supply ships and a communication vessel. The humans are targeting our support craft." Kursith snarled in anger. "Send fighter squadrons to clear out those asteroids. I want every rock searched and every human ship destroyed." But the fighters found nothing but empty space and floating debris. The humans had learned to move constantly, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. It was a type of warfare that the Empire had never encountered before. The real shock came when Staff Sergeant Kevin Johnson managed to capture an intact Zephyrian fighter. His squad had been investigating a crashed alien ship when they discovered that the pilot was still alive but unconscious. Instead of calling for backup, Kevin made a decision that would change the course of the war. "Can you fly this thing?" he asked Corporal Lisa Wang, the squad's technical expert. Lisa studied the alien controls for a few minutes. "It's not that different from our simulators. The power systems are more advanced, but the basic flight controls are similar. I think I can figure it out. Within hours, Kevin's squad was flying the captured fighter back to Earth. The alien ship's advanced systems allowed them to slip past the Imperial fleet's sensors undetected. More importantly, they were able to study the enemy's technology from the inside. Dr. Michelle Adams was the first human to examine the captured fighter. She was a brilliant engineer who had worked on the reverse engineering project that had created the Defender. But the alien technology was far more advanced than anything she had seen before. "This is incredible," she said to her team. "Their power systems are at least 50 years ahead of ours. But look at this shield generator. It's designed to deflect energy weapons, but it has a weakness." She pointed to a section of the alien control panel. "The shields operate on a specific frequency. If we can match that frequency with our own weapons, we might be able to disrupt their protection." The discovery led to a crash program to modify human weapons. Working around the clock, teams of engineers and scientists began developing new types of ammunition and energy weapons that could penetrate the alien shields. The first test came during the battle for Earth's moon. Captain Danny Thompson, commanding the U's Vigilant, led a desperate defense of the lunar mining colonies. His ship was outnumbered 10-1, but it was equipped with the new weapons that Dr. Adams had designed. "All batteries open fire," Danny ordered. The modified weapons struck the alien ships with devastating effect. The energy beams disrupted the shields, allowing the kinetic weapons to punch through the hulls. 3 Zephyrian vessels were destroyed in the first salvo, and the rest retreated in confusion. Admiral Cursith watched the battle from his command ship and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The humans were learning faster than any species he had ever encountered. They were adapting their tactics, improving their weapons, and fighting with a determination that bordered on madness. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from the mining colonies." Cursith nodded. Finally, they're seeing sense. Accept their surrender and prepare to take control of the facilities. But when the Imperial forces approached the lunar colonies, they found not surrendering humans, but a trap. The colonies had been rigged with explosives, and the surrender was just a way to get the alien ships close enough to be caught in the blast. The explosions destroyed 2 more Zephyrian vessels and damaged several others. The humans had been willing to sacrifice their own installations rather than let them fall into enemy hands. It was a level of dedication that the Empire had never seen before. As reports of the lunar battle reached Earth, human resistance fighters around the world began to take heart. The aliens could be beaten, but only if humanity was willing to pay the price. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, it looked like the humans might actually have a chance. In the depths of space, Admiral Cursith composed a message to his superiors. The humans were not the primitive savages that the Empire had expected. They were dangerous, adaptable, and completely unpredictable. If the Empire wanted to win this war, it would need to send everything it had. The message ended with a warning that would echo through the Imperial command structure. The humans are not fighting for conquest or glory. They are fighting for survival. And that makes them the most dangerous enemy we have ever faced. The news traveled across the galaxy faster than light, carried by merchant ships, and spread through the communication networks that connected thousands of worlds. The impossible had happened. Humans had fought the Zephyrian Empire and won several battles on the slave world of Kepler 442b. The reptilian Vorthik workers in the mining tunnels whispered about the mad warriors of the third planet. The Vorthik had been conquered by the Empire 300 years ago, and they had never forgotten their freedom. Now, for the first time in centuries, they dared to hope. On the ocean world of Trappist 1e, the aquatic nereids shared stories about Humans who fought alien warships with primitive weapons and won. The Nereids had been peaceful traders before the Empire enslaved them. But the human example was making them remember that they had once been warriors too. Admiral Vexthul stood before the Imperial Council, the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The council consisted of representatives from the Empire's founding species, aliens who had built their civilization on the conquest and subjugation of others. They were not pleased with the reports from Earth. "Explain to us, Admiral," hissed Counselor Zarthik, "how a primitive species with no space fleet has managed to destroy dozens of our ships." Vexthul tried to keep his voice steady. "The humans are more resourceful than we anticipated. They adapt quickly and use tactics we have never encountered before. They fight with no regard for their own safety." "Are you saying that our mighty fleet cannot defeat a handful of savages?" asked Counselor Melvora, her tentacles writhing with anger. "I am saying that we have underestimated them," Vexthul replied. "They are not fighting for conquest or glory. They are fighting for survival, and that makes them extremely dangerous." The council chamber fell silent. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such desperation. Most species surrendered when faced with overwhelming odds, but the humans seemed to get stronger the more hopeless their situation became. "We are deploying the First Fleet," announced Counselor Zarthik. "Grand Admiral Zul Thane will take command of the human extermination. This embarrassment ends now." The First Fleet was the Empire's most powerful force, consisting of over 200 warships and the best soldiers in the galaxy. Grand Admiral Zul Thane had never lost a battle in his 50-year career. If anyone could crush the human rebellion, it was him. But while the Empire prepared its ultimate weapon, humanity was not standing still. Commander Angela Scott led a team of volunteers on a mission that would have been considered impossible just months before. They were going to attack the Empire's supply lines using captured alien technology. Angela's team had spent weeks studying the Zephyrian ships they had captured. They had learned how to operate the alien technology, how to pass through Imperial checkpoints, and how to speak enough of the alien language to fool casual inspection. "Remember," Angela told her team as they prepared to depart, "we're not trying to win a big battle. We're trying to make it impossible for them to supply their forces. Every ship we destroy, every supply convoy we capture, makes it harder for them to fight." The team's first target was a supply depot in the Alpha Centauri system, just 4 light years from Earth. The depot was lightly defended, since the Empire had never faced attacks on their rear areas before. The humans approached and captured Zephyrian ships, broadcasting the proper identification codes. The attack was swift and devastating. The human team destroyed the depot's defenses, captured several supply ships, and escaped before reinforcements could arrive. But more importantly, they had proven that humans could strike anywhere in the galaxy. Captain Brandon Miller commanded the UES Retribution, humanity's first true warship built with captured alien technology. The ship was a hybrid of human engineering and Zephyrian systems, faster and more powerful than anything either species had built alone. "Our mission is simple," Brandon told his crew. "We're going to attack the Empire's forward base at Proxima Centauri. We'll hit them hard, take what we can, and show them that Earth can project power across interstellar distances." The attack on Proxima Centauri was humanity's first major offensive operation outside the solar system. The Retribution and its escort ships struck without warning, catching the Imperial garrison completely off guard. The base was destroyed, its supplies captured, and its personnel taken prisoner. The psychological impact of the attack was even greater than the military victory. The Empire's forces throughout the galaxy began to realize that nowhere was safe from human attack. The hunters had become the hunted. On the Imperial warship Dominion, Captain Velkoff received orders to patrol the trade routes between the empires. Core worlds. His crew was nervous, constantly checking their sensors for signs of human ships. The humans had developed a reputation for appearing out of nowhere, striking fast and vanishing before help could arrive. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "we're picking up a distress signal from a supply convoy. They're under attack." Velkoff ordered his ship to investigate, but when they arrived at the convoy's location, they found only wreckage. The human attackers had vanished, leaving behind the destroyed remains of 3 supply ships and a message painted on a piece of debris. "Earth remembers." The message was in perfect Zephyrian script, which meant the humans had learned to read and write the Empire's language. They were not just primitive savages anymore. They were becoming a real threat Dr. Rachel Green's research team had made. Another breakthrough in their study of captured alien technology. They had not only learned to understand Zephyrian systems, but they had found ways to improve them. The human modifications to the faster-than-light drives were actually more efficient than the original designs. "It's incredible," Rachel told President Clark during a briefing. "The Empire's technology is advanced, but it's also old. They've been using the same basic designs for centuries, without significant improvements. We're taking their systems and making them better." The discovery led to a massive upgrade of the human fleet. Ships that had been built with primitive human technology were retrofitted with hybrid systems that combined the best of both species' engineering. The result was a fleet that was smaller than the Empire's forces, but faster and more maneuverable. New technology was first tested during a battle near Jupiter. A squadron of upgraded human ships encountered a much larger Imperial force, but instead of retreating, they attacked. The human ships darted between the enemy vessels like fighters, their improved engines allowing them to outrun the larger alien ships. The battle was a complete victory for humanity. 12 Imperial ships were destroyed, and the rest retreated. In this order, the humans had proven that they could not only defend themselves, but actively hunt down and destroy enemy forces. News of the Jupiter battle spread through the Empire's military like wildfire. Entire units began refusing orders to engage human forces. Reports described humans as impossible to predict and willing to die for victory. The Empire's professional soldiers, who fought for pay and glory, could not understand an enemy that fought for survival and freedom. Commander Jake Patterson, the same pilot who had first detected the alien invasion, now led a squadron of advanced fighters in strikes against Imperial installations. His unit had destroyed more enemy ships than any other human force, earning them the nickname Patterson's Demons among the alien forces. "We're not the same people who were defending Earth 6 months ago," Jake told his pilots during a briefing. "We've learned their language, we've mastered their technology, and we've shown them that humans don't give up. Now it's time to take the fight to their home worlds." The plan was audacious, a direct attack on the Empire's capital system. It would require everything humanity had learned about alien technology, tactics, and psychology. But if it succeeded, it would prove that no world in the galaxy was safe from human retaliation. As the human fleet prepared for its most ambitious operation yet, the Empire struggled to understand what had gone wrong. They had faced rebellions before, but never one that grew stronger with each defeat. The humans were not just fighting back. They were evolving, adapting, and becoming more dangerous with each passing day. Grand Admiral Zul Thane arrived at the Chew front lines to find his forces demoralized and scattered. The humans had turned the galaxy into a battlefield, striking at targets throughout the Empire's territory. Supply lines were disrupted, communication networks were under constant attack, and morale was at an all-time low. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his staff. "Operational vessels?" "Perhaps half of what we started with," came the reply. "But sir, it's not just the ships, it's the crews. They're afraid of the humans. They think the humans are some kind of supernatural warriors who cannot be defeated. Zul Thane stared at the tactical display, which showed human attack patterns across dozens of star systems. The humans had gone from defending a single world to threatening the entire empire. In less than a year, it was the most rapid military expansion in galactic history. "Prepare the fleet for a final assault on Earth," he ordered. "We end this now, or we lose everything." But as the Grand Admiral made his plans, he could not shake the feeling that he was already too late. The humans had learned too much, adapted too quickly, and spread too far. The empire that had ruled the Gala. The final battle did not take place at Earth, as Grand Admiral Zul Thane had planned. Instead, it happened at Zephyr Prime, the capital world of the empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. The humans had decided that the best defense was a devastating offense. Commander Jason Taylor stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, humanity's new flagship. The ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, combined with captured alien technology, faster and more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Around him, a fleet of 200 human vessels prepared for the most audacious military operation in history. "All ships, this is Liberty Command," Jason spoke into his communicator. "Today, we end 1,000 years of tyranny. Today, we show the galaxy that freedom cannot be conquered." The human fleet had traveled through space using captured Imperial navigation charts and improved faster-than-light drives. They had avoided the Empire's patrol routes and sensor networks, appearing at Zephyr Prime without warning. The capital. World's defenders were caught completely off guard. Admiral Vexthal was in his office when the alarms began sounding throughout the command center. He rushed to the main tactical room, where panicked officers were trying to make sense of their sensor readings. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, we have multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace," an officer replied, his voice shaking. "The signatures match human vessels, but that's impossible. They couldn't have traveled this far." Vexthal stared at the display screen in disbelief. The humans had somehow crossed half the galaxy and were now attacking the Empire's most heavily defended world. It was military genius or complete madness, and he was not sure which was worse. "How many ships?" he asked. "Over 200 confirmed, sir, and they're broadcasting a message." The message appeared on the main screen. It was President Amanda Clark speaking from the bridge of a human warship. Her words were calm, but carried the weight of absolute determination. "People of the Empire," she said, "for too long you have lived under the rule of tyrants who conquered free worlds and enslaved innocent species. Today, humanity offers you a choice, freedom or destruction. To the Imperial leadership, we demand your immediate and unconditional surrender." Admiral Vexthal felt his blood turn cold. The humans were not just attacking the capital. They were offering to liberate the Empire's enslaved populations. If the conquered species joined the human rebellion, the Empire would collapse within days. "All available ships, engage the human fleet immediately," he ordered. "Send messages to every system in the Empire. We need reinforcements now." But the Imperial response was chaotic and poorly coordinated. The Empire had grown fat and lazy after centuries of easy conquests. Their commanders were not prepared for an enemy that fought with such intensity and coordination. Captain Nicole Parker led the spearhead assault against the Empire's orbital defenses. Her squadron of advanced fighters moved through the defensive network like wolves among sheep, destroying weapons platforms and communication arrays with surgical precision. "Ghost Squadron, target the command satellites," she ordered. "If we can blind them, their defense coordination will collapse." The human fighters struck with devastating effectiveness. Their weapons had been specifically designed to penetrate Imperial shields, and their tactics were unlike anything the defenders had encountered. McCall's pilots fought with a combination of technical skill and desperate courage that overwhelmed the enemy's resistance. On the surface of Zephyr Prime, the alien population watched the battle in the sky with a mixture of fear and hope. Many of them were descendants of conquered species who had been forced to serve the Empire for generations. The sight of Imperial ships being destroyed by human vessels filled them with emotions they had thought lost forever. In the slave quarters of the capital city, a young Vorthik named Kresh watched the explosions in orbit and whispered a prayer to the old gods of his homeworld. "Let the humans win," he said. "Let them break the chains that have bound us for so long." The prayer was repeated by millions of beings across the Empire's territory. Species that had been enslaved for centuries began to see the humans not as conquerors, but as liberators. The psychological impact was devastating to Imperial morale. Grand Admiral Zul Thane arrived with the first fleet to find the battle already raging. His forces were the Empire's elite, but they faced an enemy that had learned to fight like demons. The humans used tactics that combined overwhelming firepower with suicidal bravery, creating a style of warfare that the Empire had never encountered. "All ships, engage the human fleet," Zul Thane ordered. "Show them the power of the Empire." The Imperial ships moved into attack formation, their weapons charging for a massive barrage. But the humans did not wait to receive the attack. Instead, they charged directly at the larger Imperial vessels, closing to point-blank range where their weapons could do maximum damage. Commander Jason Taylor led the charge aboard the Liberty. His ship raced toward the Imperial flagship, weapons blazing and engines pushing beyond their safety limits. Around him, other human vessels followed his example, turning the space battle into a close-quarters melee. "All batteries, concentrate. Fire on their command ship," Jason ordered. "If we can take out their leadership, the rest will fall apart." The Liberty's weapons struck the Imperial flagship with devastating force. The alien ship's shields collapsed under the barrage, and explosions began to ripple across its hull. Grand Admiral Zul Thane watched his command center dissolve into chaos as human weapons tore his ship apart. "Sir, we must abandon ship," his aide shouted over the sound of alarms and explosions. Zul Thane shook his head. "No. If we retreat now, the Empire falls. Signal all ships to ram the human vessels. We die with honor." But the order never reached most of his fleet. The human attack had been so swift and brutal that Imperial communications were already breaking down. Ships that tried to ram the human vessels found themselves outmaneuvered by the faster, more agile human craft. Captain Danny Thompson, commanding the UES Defender, found himself facing 3 Imperial ships at once. His vessel was outnumbered and outgunned, but he had something the enemy lacked: the knowledge that humanity's survival depended on victory. "Engine room, give me everything you've got," he ordered. "Weapons, target their engines. If we can't outgun them, we'll outrun them." The Defender darted between the alien ships, firing at their propulsion systems and leaving them dead in space. It was a tactic that required split-second timing and absolute trust in his crew's abilities. But it worked. The 3 Imperial vessels were left helpless as the Defender moved on to its next target. Admiral Vex Thul watched the battle from his command center and realized that the impossible was happening. The humans were winning. Not only were they destroying Imperial ships faster than they were being destroyed, but they were doing it with a style and intensity that was breaking the Empire's will to fight. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from ships throughout the fleet. Many of our captains are asking permission to withdraw." Vex Thul closed his eyes. The Empire's military pride, built over 1,000 years of conquest, was crumbling in a single battle. The humans had not just defeated them. They had shattered the myth of Imperial invincibility. The end came when the Imperial flagship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Grand Admiral Zul Thane died with his ship, taking with him the last hope of Imperial victory. The surviving alien vessels began to surrender or flee, leaving the humans in control of the Empire's capital system. President Clark appeared on communication screens throughout the galaxy, speaking from the Bridge of the Liberty as it orbited the conquered capital world. Her message was broadcast to every inhabited system in the Empire. "People of the galaxy," she said, "the empire that has oppressed you for centuries is finished. Humanity offers friendship and alliance to all free species, but we will show no mercy to those who choose to continue the empire's legacy of tyranny." The response was immediate and overwhelming. On world after world, the enslaved populations rose up against their imperial governors. The Vorthic miners on Kepler 442b seized control of their world within hours. The Nereids of Trappist 1e destroyed the imperial garrison and declared their independence. Dozens of species that had been conquered generations ago suddenly remembered what freedom meant. Admiral Susan Lee, now commanding the Earth Defense Fleet, received surrender requests from imperial commanders throughout the galaxy. Some were genuine offers of peace, while others were desperate attempts to avoid the fate of their capital world. "Ma'am," reported Captain Tony Rodriguez, "we're getting messages from over 50 systems. Some want to surrender, others want to join our alliance, and a few are asking for help with their own rebellions." Susan smiled as she read the reports. 1 year ago, humanity had been a single world facing extinction. Now they were the leaders of a galactic alliance that was rewriting the political map of the galaxy. The final scene of the war took place in the ruins of the Imperial Command Center on Zephyr Prime. Admiral Vexthul, the last surviving member of the Imperial leadership, signed the formal surrender documents. His hands shook as he wrote his name, officially ending 1,000 years of galactic tyranny. "Your species," he said to President Clark, "has changed everything. The galaxy will never